The crystal chandelier trembled ever so slightly as applause echoed across the grand ballroom of the Kensington Crown Hotel in Boston, where nearly 300 philanthropists, executives, and politicians had gathered beneath shimmering golden lights for the city's most prestigious annual charity gala. At the very moment the host praised generosity and compassion from the stage, a waiter carrying a silver tray brushed past an elderly janitor quietly polishing a marble column near the entrance. The tray lurched, several glasses rattled, and before anyone could react, a wealthy guest spun around in irritation and shoved the janitor backward. His cleaning bucket tipped over, dirty water splashing across the polished shoes and expensive tuxedo of billionaire real estate developer Victor Langston. The ballroom fell into complete silence. Hundreds of eyes turned toward the old man, whose gray uniform was faded from years of use and whose hands remained wrapped around the wooden mop handle instead of reaching to defend himself. Victor stared at the stains spreading across his trousers before glaring at the janitor as though he had ruined the entire evening on purpose. "Do you have any idea what this suit costs?" he demanded loudly enough for every nearby table to hear. A few guests laughed nervously while others simply watched, unwilling to interrupt someone whose donations and influence shaped half the city's skyline. The old janitor lowered his eyes for a brief moment, then calmly picked up the overturned bucket, placed it upright, folded the damp cloth resting on its rim, and spoke in a quiet voice. "I'm sorry your evening was interrupted." His composure somehow irritated Victor even more. "Interrupted?" Victor scoffed. "You've contaminated the most important event of the year." One member of Victor's executive team smirked and muttered, "Maybe they should screen employees before letting them wander into rooms like this." More laughter followed. The janitor neither argued nor apologized again. Instead, he simply continued wiping the water from the marble floor before anyone could slip. Watching from a nearby table, event coordinator Claire Bennett felt a knot tighten in her stomach. At 38, she had spent months organizing tonight's fundraiser because its success could rescue several struggling children's hospitals across New England. Every major donor was expected to announce their pledge before dessert, including a mysterious benefactor whose identity had remained confidential throughout the planning process. The anonymous commitment was rumored to exceed $800 million, making it the largest private charitable gift in state history. Claire desperately needed the evening to remain flawless, yet something about the old janitor's quiet dignity made her uncomfortable with the way everyone was treating him. She stepped forward, offering him a fresh towel from the catering station. "Here," she said softly, careful not to embarrass him further. He accepted it with a warm smile that reached his tired blue eyes. "Thank you," he replied. "Kindness usually arrives before recognition." Claire blinked, puzzled by the unusual remark, while across the ballroom Victor dismissed the incident with an arrogant wave and returned to entertaining influential guests, completely convinced the anonymous donor would soon become his newest business ally. None of them noticed the janitor quietly glance toward the ornate ballroom doors as though he were waiting for someone else to arrive before the evening revealed its true purpose. Claire tried to return her attention to the evening's schedule, but the image of the elderly janitor calmly cleaning the floor while absorbing public humiliation refused to leave her mind. Around the ballroom, servers resumed delivering elegant plates of filet mignon and roasted vegetables as a jazz quartet filled the silence that had settled after Victor Langston's outburst. Conversation slowly returned, although several guests continued glancing toward the old man with the same dismissive curiosity reserved for someone they believed existed only to remain invisible. The janitor quietly wheeled his cleaning cart along the edge of the room, stopping occasionally to straighten a chair or remove an empty glass before anyone asked. He moved with remarkable patience, as though no insult spoken a few minutes earlier had touched him at all. Claire approached him again while pretending to check the floral arrangements. "I wanted to apologize," she said softly. "No one deserves to be spoken to like that." The old man smiled gently. "People usually reveal more about themselves than about the person standing in front of them." Before Claire could respond, Victor climbed onto the stage to welcome the audience officially. Speaking with effortless confidence, he praised generosity, leadership, and the importance of uplifting every community through compassion. The irony wasn't lost on Claire, who found herself watching the janitor instead of the speaker. Rather than reacting with bitterness, the old man simply listened while making a few notes inside a small leather notebook he had pulled from his uniform pocket. He wasn't writing constantly, only occasionally, almost as if certain promises and certain names deserve to be remembered. Across the room, several executives noticed him writing and chuckled among themselves. Maybe he's keeping track of which tables need sweeping, one whispered, drawing another round of quiet laughter. The janitor ignored them completely. As Victor finished his speech, the master of ceremonies stepped forward with exciting news. Ladies and gentlemen, in just a few moments we will welcome the anonymous philanthropist whose extraordinary commitment will transform healthcare across our region. Applause erupted again. Victor straightened his jacket confidently, convinced the announcement would strengthen his own influence among Boston's business elite. Claire checked her phone. According to the confidential schedule, the donor's representative should already have arrived, yet there was no message from the reception desk. She discreetly contacted the front entrance. "Has our special guest checked in?" she asked. After a brief pause, the answer came back. "Not yet." Claire frowned. The delay was unusual. Meanwhile, the elderly janitor quietly rolled his cart toward a side hallway, where he paused beside a large window overlooking the rain-soaked city streets. His phone vibrated once. He glanced at the screen before answering in a calm voice. "Everything is ready," asked a woman on the other end. "Almost," he replied. "Give me 10 more minutes. The board is waiting for your decision." "I know." He ended the call and slipped the phone back into his pocket just as Claire rounded the corner carrying a clipboard. She noticed only that he seemed remarkably composed for someone who had just been publicly embarrassed. "Are you all right?" she asked. He nodded with a peaceful expression. Sometimes the most important decisions are easier to make after people show you who they really are. Before Claire could ask what he meant, one of Victor's assistants hurried through the hallway searching for her. "Claire, we're still waiting for the anonymous donor. Victor wants answers immediately." She hurried back toward the ballroom, unaware that the quiet janitor watched her leave with genuine sympathy, while beyond the hotel's revolving doors, 3 black executive sedans had just pulled up to the entrance, their passengers remaining inside as though awaiting a single signal before stepping into the building. Inside the ballroom, confidence slowly gave way to uneasiness as 10 minutes stretched into 20, and the seat reserved for the anonymous benefactor remained empty beneath a small gold nameplate that simply read "Guest of Honor." The musicians quietly repeated the same melody while servers delayed dessert for the second time, unsure whether to continue the program without the evening's most important guest. Victor Langston forced an easy smile whenever someone asked about the delay, insisting that people of extraordinary wealth often arrived fashionably late, but even he could feel the mood changing as whispered conversations replaced cheerful laughter. Claire moved between tables answering nervous questions while secretly refreshing her phone every few seconds, hoping for an update that never came. Finally, one of the hotel's security supervisors hurried toward her carrying a tablet. "Claire, I think you need to see this." The screen displayed the confidential guest registry that had been locked until the event began. At the very top was the name of the anonymous donor, followed by a note marked "Private Arrival, do not announce until confirmed." Claire read it twice before her eyes widened in disbelief. "This can't be right," she whispered. The supervisor nodded nervously. "I verified it with the foundation office." Before she could process what she had just seen, Victor impatiently walked over. "What is going on?" he demanded. "Why hasn't our donor arrived?" Claire hesitated, then slowly turned the tablet toward him. His confident expression vanished almost instantly. The photograph displayed beside the donor's profile showed the very same elderly janitor who had been mocked only minutes earlier. His name was Samuel Whitmore, founder and chairman of the Whitmore Hope Foundation, one of the largest privately funded charitable organizations in the United States. The foundation's planned commitment of $800 million would finance children's hospitals, medical research, and emergency care facilities across 5 states. Victor stared at the image as though refusing to believe it. "That's impossible," he muttered. "He's a janitor." Claire swallowed. No, he chose to arrive dressed as one. Around them, several executives gathered after noticing the growing tension. Within moments, the information spread from table to table until the ballroom buzzed with stunned whispers. "The janitor?" someone asked. "He owns the foundation?" Another guest recalled the earlier humiliation, while others looked toward the entrance, suddenly realizing what had happened. Victor grabbed his phone and dialed the number listed on the registry, but the call ended after a single ring. He tried again. Voicemail. A third attempt met the same result. The master of ceremonies quietly stepped away from the microphone, unsure how to continue. Then, without warning, the ballroom doors opened. Every conversation stopped. Samuel Whitmore entered wearing a perfectly tailored midnight blue suit, accompanied by 6 members of his executive leadership team and 2 trustees from the Whitmore Hope Foundation. Gone was the faded uniform and worn work shoes. Yet his calm expression remained exactly the same. No anger. No triumph. Just quiet dignity. Guests instinctively rose from their seats, and even Victor found himself standing without realizing it. He hurried forward, forcing an uneasy smile. "Mr. Whitmore, there has been a terrible misunderstanding." Samuel looked at him for a long moment before answering in the same gentle voice everyone had heard earlier that evening. "No, Mr. Langston. There was complete understanding. Every person in this room treated me exactly as they believed I deserved before they knew who I was." A silence heavier than any applause settled across the ballroom as those words lingered in the air, leaving no one able to pretend the evening's events had been anything other than a reflection of their own character. For several long seconds, no one dared speak. Victor lowered his eyes for the first time that evening, searching for words that refused to come, while Claire quietly watched Samuel Whitmore with growing admiration. He had every opportunity to humiliate those who had humiliated him, yet there wasn't a trace of satisfaction on his face. Instead, he walked slowly toward the stage, stopping beside the podium where Victor had proudly spoken about compassion less than an hour earlier. Samuel placed a slim leather folder on the lectern and looked across the hundreds of silent guests. "When our foundation considers a partnership," he began, "we don't only examine financial statements, architectural plans, or fundraising goals. We examine character. Buildings can be repaired. Reputations can recover. Character is much harder to rebuild." His calm voice carried effortlessly through the ballroom. Tonight wasn't a disguise. It was an interview. A ripple of disbelief swept through the audience. Samuel continued, "For the past 15 years, I've attended charitable events across the country without introducing myself. Sometimes I arrive as a volunteer. Sometimes as maintenance staff. Sometimes as an ordinary guest. I want to discover how organizations treat people who appear unable to offer them anything in return." He opened the folder. "Unfortunately, tonight's results are disappointing." Victor stepped forward, his confidence completely gone. "Mr. Whitmore, please, give us an opportunity to make this right." Samuel met his eyes with quiet sincerity. "You already had that opportunity. It began the moment I walked through those doors." He then turned toward Claire. There was one exception. The room followed his gaze. Claire looked genuinely surprised. Samuel smiled warmly. "You offered kindness when there was nothing to gain from it. You defended someone's dignity when remaining silent would have been easier. That's the kind of leadership real change depends on." Claire felt tears gathering in her eyes, never expecting to become part of the evening's story. Samuel removed another document from the folder. "Earlier this afternoon, after reviewing every report and observing tonight's events, our board voted unanimously to redirect the $800 million commitment." Audible gasps filled the ballroom. "The donation will now be awarded jointly to the Children's Care Alliance and the Regional Community Health Network, organizations whose volunteers and staff consistently demonstrated the values this foundation exists to encourage. Additionally, Ms. Claire Bennett has accepted our invitation to serve as Executive Director of Partnership Development for the Whitmore Hope Foundation should she choose to do so." Claire covered her mouth in disbelief as spontaneous applause broke out from every corner of the room, this time genuine and heartfelt. Victor remained frozen, understanding that he had not simply lost a historic donation but the trust and respect that money alone could never buy. As guests slowly approached Samuel to apologize, he accepted each apology with courtesy but reminded them that sincere regret mattered only if it changed future behavior. Before leaving, he walked back to the marble column where his mop and cleaning bucket still rested. Picking up the folded towel Claire had handed him earlier, he smiled. The smallest kindness in a room is often remembered the longest. Then he quietly handed the towel back to her and departed with his team, leaving behind a ballroom transformed not by wealth, but by an unforgettable lesson. In the months that followed, Claire accepted her new position and helped oversee hundreds of life-changing healthcare projects across the country, while Victor resigned from several charitable boards and spent years rebuilding his reputation through genuine community service rather than public speeches. Whenever journalists later asked Samuel why he continued testing people instead of simply introducing himself, he always gave the same answer: because the truest measure of a person's heart is revealed long before they know who's watching. And although the newspapers celebrated the record-breaking donation, those who attended that gala remembered something far more valuable: that respect offered only to the powerful is not respect at all, but courtesy driven by convenience, while true kindness never asks a person's title before extending a helping hand.